Hey guys, welcome back to the Kool-Aid Podcast. Welcome back to another video. On today's video, guys, I'm going to be talking about Ivan Rakitic because the Croatian legendary midfielder, he has retired. We're going to be looking at his quote in a recent interview in which he talked about his career. He talked about his time at Barça. He's talking about current Barcelona players. We're going to be talking about a lot. And we're going to be talking about a very underrated player who was super key for Barcelona for many years. Before I do, guys, make sure to follow me on all of my social media platforms. Everything's posted down below in the description. Go over there and check me out. That way you guys can stay up to date with everything that I do on the channel. And as well, the link to become a member is also posted down below. But as always, guys, let's get started with the video. All right, guys, let's get started with the video and let's talk about Ivan Rakitic, a player who was so key for Barca for many years, a treble winner, a player who came from Sevilla and absolutely teared it up at Barcelona here until 2019, 2020, around that time period. And as you guys can see right here, he stacked up some amazing trophies along the way. La Liga, Copa del Rey, a Champions League, a FIFA Club World Cup. It was a very good spell at Barcelona for the Croatian midfielder, a player who is underrated by a lot. Now, I do understand, his latter years at the club, maybe it was stretched a little bit too long. Maybe he could have left a little bit earlier, but I still want to give credit to a legendary player who played for the club. And we're going to be looking and reflecting upon his words and just giving credit to what is an amazing player. Rakitic, he starts off his interview by talking about that decision to retire. And he says, I don't think it's ever completely clear. There were moments when I say, all right, this is it. And then the next day, I wasn't so sure. I'm really grateful for everything football has given me. I wanted to be the one to leave football, not for football to leave me. Honestly, I still feel great and could have played for another 2 or 3 more years, but that's not the point. It's about recognizing the perfect moment. In the end, I also spoke with my wife and my daughters, who aren't little girls anymore. We all decided together that this is the perfect time, especially because I want to start training myself. I'm going to study sports management with UEFA. I'll also begin working as a director at Hajduk Split. I apologies if I mispronounced that, but right there, new chapter in Ivan Rakitic's life. He spoke about the decision to retire, and it's completely understandable how I would say at the start it's very confusing knowing when to necessarily say, hey, it's time for me to retire. Some players, they struggle with that decision. Some players just do not want to retire. And I give credit for Ivan Rakitic acknowledging that and saying, hey, my time is up. I want to leave football and not have football leave me. Ivan Rakitic, he talks about the legacy that he leaves behind. He says, I'm filled with joy to keep doing the same thing, which is helping. Hopefully, I can help take Hajduk to the next level. This truly fills me with pride because, for example, the other day we presented a new player, also a midfielder. And during the presentation, he said he'd choose the number 4 because I've been his idol since my time at Barca. These are the moments that genuinely make me proud. Knowing that I've done many things right honestly makes me especially happy. And as a footballer, you want to leave a legacy. And right there, Ivan Rakitic, he spoke about what it meant, the impact that he has. And honestly, I wish him all the very best into this next chapter of his life. He talked about how his move to Barcelona happened. He gave insight. He says, all of that happened right during the World Cup in Brazil, 2014. Our first match was the tournament opener against Brazil. I was on the phone with the national team, just about to take off for Brazil, when my brother called me to tell me, we need to talk quickly. It's something important. We were about to take off, and they were taking my phone away. But my brother handed me over to Zubi Zareta. He was calling me to tell me that Barca was very interested, and I was like, "Damn!" But I didn't have time, and I had to hang up with a 10-hour flight ahead of me. Imagine, you're about to go into a super serious tournament, a World Cup, one of the milestones in your career, and you're and you receive a call from brother saying, hey, Barcelona, they're interested in you. That's crazy. Imagine that 10-hour flight. Imagine all the thoughts and all the emotions that Ivan Rakitic was going through during that flight. He talked about, the suspense before the move. He says, imagine the nerves. I had to wait 10 hours. I tried to get a bit of rest, but I didn't sleep a single minute. I was just waiting to land in Brazil so I could call back and see how things were going. And after that, honestly, everything moved very quickly, especially thanks to Luis Enrique and Zubi. We reached an agreement, and from the very first moment, I was eager to join Barca. Wow. Wow. All right. There he talked about, talked about the suspense. It was a crazy thing that happened in one's life. Because guys, as much as some people say, Barcelona they're in the mud or like Barcelona they're broke, even though Barcelona they've had a fantastic season this past year, Barcelona they're still among the biggest clubs in the world. Players will do everything possible in order to join. And when players they don't show that desire, why should we be stressing out over that necessarily? Rakitic, he talks about Luis Enrique. He says there had to be something behind the interest he had in me. And later, thinking about it, I realized he must have been paying attention to me during his time at Celta. Coincidentally, my two best matches that season were Sevilla versus Celta and Celta versus Sevilla. Maybe that's when I won him over a bit. But in the end, those are just feelings. At that moment, honestly, there were a lot of options. But once I spoke for the first time with Zubi, and then also with Luis Enrique, it was clear to me that I only wanted to sign for Barcelona, showing his desire very, very clear. He talked about the conversations that he had with Luis Enrique. He says, of course, I remember I was in the courtyard of a hotel in Brazil, more nervous than anything. He was very concise, very clear. He told me he wanted me in his team, that he had already made it very clear to the club, and they wanted to get the deal done as soon as possible. They knew about my situation, that I was entering the final year of my contract, and we had just won the Europa League. Honestly, it was a very important season for me, and I guess they wanted to move quickly, which is why he called me directly, and we reached an agreement in no time. When the player wants to come, they make it super easy. He talked about that change of role coming from Sevilla to Barcelona. He says, "Well, it was a matter of understanding things. I remember Unai Emery always used to say, if you don't know where to pass the ball, give it to Rakitic. And at Barca, that was different. I already knew that when I arrived at Barca, I wouldn't have that same kind of role, and that made sense. I always told myself I didn't want to change. I wanted to try to be myself, to try to earn the trust of those players who have already won everything, who are at the top level. If I can help them, even in a small way, that already means a lot. I don't want to push myself onto anyone. I just want them to know they can count on me, that I'm comfortable on the ball too, but that I also have no problem covering space and sprinting 70 or 80 meters. I'll do that. And that was his game. Rakitic, he was a box to box midfielder, but a player who was so comfortable on the ball, who had a great, eye for goal, who gave assists, who gave goals, who was great defensively. Even Rakitic in his early days for Barcelona was such a complete player. And in those early years at Barcelona, he was absolutely amazing. He was undroppable. Imagine being able to bench Xavi. He benched Xavi. Rakitic, he talks about, the bond between Iniesta and Xavi. And he says, yes, he was. I think a lot of what we lacked in the years that followed was because we no longer had Xavi in the dressing room. Why? Because I learned from Xavi, I think we all did. There was no one better than him in midfield. But it wasn't just about what he did on the pitch. Was what impressed me most was how he managed the dressing room, how he handled the press, how he dealt with the club's marketing side, how he had everything under control when we traveled. I always said that I liked that kind of leadership role myself, of managing everything. And he helped me position myself to see things from a different perspective. When we lost all that, we missed those little details that make the difference in winning matches in the years that followed. And that's interesting because you never really, gain that insight from necessarily the player's perspective. Rakitic right here, he gives immense praise and credit to Xavi and says because Barcelona didn't have that leadership from Xavi, a legendary figure, one of the best midfielders of all time, Barcelona they lacked something. And could maybe that have been the reason why, in the following year Barcelona were knocked out by Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, a game in which we relatively shouldn't have lost. And then the year that followed, against Juventus, and the year that followed against Roma, games that necessarily Barcelona they missed that final push necessarily. Rakitic, he talks about Xavi as a manager. He says that's clear. But if Xavi had taken over the team at the moment he did, things would have been much worse. The fact that the team had reached this point now is partly thanks to him. If the club hadn't signed him while he was in Qatar, all Barca fans would have been facing a big problem. That's why it makes me sad in the end he left the way he did. He was the one who brought in all those young players who are now shining so brightly, and without them, there would have been serious issues too. They emerged at the perfect time. But it was Xavi who had the ability to put them in the right place at the right time. And only Xavi did that. And this is why I give Xavi so much credit. Xavi, even though his role at Barcelona, his time, it wasn't brilliant, but it was much, much needed. What Xavi did, he stabilized the ship. After Barcelona's worst ever season, he stabilized the ship. He made sure that Barcelona, they were going to be set up for the future. He set the foundation for what Hansi Flick is experiencing right now. The success like he is experienced is because he's trusted in La Masia, because he was able to bring stability to the club. And I give him so much credit for that. Rakitic continues on, and he talks about his friendship with Iniesta. He says, in the end, football goes by very quickly. I've had a 20-year career, but the beautiful thing is that it gives you lifelong friends, people who will still be there when we reach a certain age, chatting together. With Andres, I've gained a friend, an older brother for life. Honestly, to this day, we talk a lot. Our wives have had a very close relationship too. He's the best friend I made during my time in Barcelona. He's someone to love, someone to enjoy being around. Besides, we share so many interests and things we love doing together. So hopefully there are many more great moments to come with Andres in the future. Lovely, lovely little moment right there, reminiscing between Iniesta, and he actually talks about his assist from Iniesta. He says it means a lot. It's right up there. Very important. Very important because it's the kind of emotion that hopefully every kid who loves football can experience one day. Incredible moments. Also, because for me, it came after two back to back seasons that were just incredible. First, a change in Sevilla ended up with winning the Europa League and being named MVP. Then, after the World Cup, signing for Barca and finishing the season like that. After Berlin, I just wanted the first league match to start again so we could keep going. We felt so good and had such an amazing atmosphere that we all wanted was to keep playing football with that Barca team. And I miss it. And I miss it. I want Barcelona to go back to those like periods where we were just dominant, where we just, played such attractive football, where we just enjoyed it. And Hansi Flick has brought that. And hopefully, we are able to replicate that 2015 success in the Champions League. And who knows, maybe next year could be the year. He talks about Messi, but honestly, guys, the video is getting a little bit long. I don't want to keep you guys here too long. But Rakitic, he actually talked about the whole Nico Williams situation. He says everyone has to know what's important to them. For me, at the end of the day, it was clear. Whether they called me, I said I have to find an agreement, whatever it takes. It's not about needing a clause or not. Of course, you can ask for things, but if both sides really want it, we'll find a way. And right there, Rakitic made it clear. Nico Williams did not want to come to Barca badly enough. And when that doesn't happen, things are not going to progress. And as Johan Cruyff said, those who doubt to come into play for Barcelona are no longer needed. Rakitic, he talks about Joan Garcia versus Ter Stegen, the goalkeeper situation. How is that going to play out? And he says, hopefully well. Hans is going to face a tough situation there because only one goalkeeper can play. We know how they are. It doesn't matter if you're first, second, or third, or fifth choice. If you're training, you want to play. It won't be easy. For me, it's clear Joan Garcia is good, a very talented keeper, but he's competing with Mark. If I have Ter Stegen on my team, Ter Stegen plays. That's crystal clear. He's also the captain. He has everyone's respect, and he's very important. I'm convinced Hazi has a plan and has it well thought out. Let's see if he can create the right atmosphere to make it all work. Because in the end, the most important thing is that the team functions well. And this is something that Hansi Flick has sat down to talk with Ter Stegen. Hansi Flick has told Ter Stegen, you are not in my plans. Joan Garcia, number one, you're going to need to find an exit door in order to guarantee minutes. Ter Stegen making a stand. He wants to compete here at Barcelona. And as I said, Barcelona, They want to get the wages off the wage bill. That's going to make things much, much easier in the transfer window in order to register players and to make things happen in the transfer window. And at the same time, Ter Stegen, you need to go out there and get minutes. Nothing has changed on that front. Hansi Flick, Barcelona made it clear you're not in our plans. Ter Stegen wants to stay. Let's see how it develops. Nothing really new in that regard. Rakitic, he talks about this current Barca team. It says yes, in a beautiful way. Last year, the only thing missing was someone with a bit more experience, someone capable of hitting where it hurts when needed. But I think Barca is becoming really intimidating, not just in La Liga, but also in Europe. And that's something that we've been missing these past years. That aura, that ability to necessarily strike fear into those opposition teams in Europe. And let's hope that next season is the season in which we win those trophies. And the last thing I want to talk about, guys, before I end off the video, is in regards to Messi. Rakitic had some glowing words on Messi, and he says Messi is the best he's ever seen. He says, of course, of what I've seen and even what I haven't. It's a shame I never got to see other greats like Maradona or Pelé, of course, but there's only one player who started young and has spent over 20 years doing the same incredible things. I always remember when we played short-sighted games against him in training. Luis would always say, careful, he's left-footed, he's left-footed. And I replied, then you defend him if you're so smart. And then Leo would go to the right, switch the ball to his left, and do everything you can imagine. He was and still is unstoppable. That's some amazing praise from Rakitic, and a player who, they have I would say a very good relationship. He talked about the relationship, but obviously I don't want to talk too much, guys, because then the video, there's so many quotes I can talk about. Rakitic, he had a very long interview, but I touched upon the key topics right there. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments. What do you guys make of Rakitic's career, his time at Barcelona? Where would you guys rank him as legend in the club? I want to hear everything down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And see you guys all in the next video. Peace out, guys.
Vamos.